Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we talked about the Viridescent Venerer and learned a lot about some old Teyvatan history. This week, we're going to be talking about some old and new history as we discuss the Sacred Sakura. Additionally, I want to remind travelers to visit talesofteyvat.com to see visual representations of the lore mentioned during today's podcast. Your guides put them together for you to make things a little easier to understand. Also, on our site, you can find some awesome goodies, including artist spotlights from the amazing and talented Genshin community for each episode, wallpapers for download based on our favorite screenshots, and a way to check out some of our favorite Genshin merch. Please be sure to check them out and support all the amazing artists and creators we have in the community. Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. So let's go to Inazuma and talk a little bit about the Sakura Tree and the ley lines, and we're going to talk about a little bit of everything, but let's start with what is the Sacred Sakura?
Let's get zapped.
Oh.
Zappy wappy.
I just think of like that one meme I always saw that's like, Inazuma, everything tries to kill you.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Entire land, including the Sakura Tree.
I blame the tree for everything.
Yeah, so it's a tree. It's a sacred tree.
It's a tree.
That is also a
tree.
shrine.
And this is the shrine where Yae Miko chills.
Mhm.
Yes.
And her shrine maidens, her little harem.
Yae Miko and the Shrine Maiden sounds like an amazing band.
But yeah, it's a tree, and we'll get into where it originated, but it is a sacred tree that also, well, we suspect is tied to Irminsul,
Mhm.
maybe.
And the ley lines?
And the ley lines, absolutely. And there's other like little electro trees that are tied to it as well, which I think Al knows about.
Yeah. So from the Sacred Sakura, these grafted branches are planted on Kanazuka Island. And basically, the reason they were put there is because during a time where I suspect was during the Cataclysm, there was a bunch of corruption, a bunch of strange monsters. In the lore, they call it filth, which, sus. That could mean anything, but it reminds me a lot of when we look at the chasm and all the kind of like sludgy oil stuff we see.
Yeah.
That's what reminds me of it. And so they place these Thunder Sakuras to help cleanse it. And unfortunately, they need to be re-amplified in a way, pun intended, in order to keep this filth at bay. And that's because they themselves can't constantly energize itself. Like the roots of a sacred Sakura, it needs to be cleansed.
Mhm.
And so they have a ritual every 60 years because it seems about 60 years is when filth begins to emerge. Maybe one of the reasons why the great Wolf Lord or all of these Rift Hounds are seen in particular parts of Inazuma. So that's the main reason why they're there. And we come into Inazuma around the time of 60 years, and it's time to re-cleanse again.
When we first come into contact and understanding of all of the pieces with the Sacred Sakura and the cleansing ritual that kind of goes along with it in those quests, there's two sides of it. There's a minor cleansing and then a major cleansing. So that major cleansing is that 60-year piece. Those minor ones is kind of where, and I think we do it very similar. Like the story makes it sound like there's years in between, but like we kind of do it in the quest first and second, like it's very close to one another.
Mm-hmm.
But the minor cleansing is actually going to those Thunder Sakuras and suppressing the actual corruption, and just kind of like we make a barrier around it. We put a little sock on it and we move on. So it's like a little band-aid for a little bit. And that's kind of when we go around to those big tree roots that also tried to kill us, like everything else in Inazuma.
Just to simplify and clarify to make sure I'm on the right path, we're saying that the Thunder Sakura cleansing that we do over on Kanazuka Island those three like purpley trees that are kind of like look dead, but they're not. And I remember we run into a shrine maiden and she asks for help. So that is the minor cleansing, and that is a world quest.
Yeah, there's 5 of them.
And there's 5 of them. We have to go across the island. Yeah, not 3. I think I remember 3 of them being so hard.
And then your brain just shut off.
Yeah, then my brain was like, there's 3. But we kind of run around. We have to fight some monsters. We have to like give things, I think, to the tree, right? To cleanse it. And that's, like you said, like a band-aid. And then we have the greater...
Yeah, the major cleansing.
Which takes place with Hanachiri Sato back on the main island of Narukami, right?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
We kind of get introduced with her over at Kondo Village. And there's a couple things that kind of lead up to it that bring us even into that space that she actually asks us for help. I think she asks us to do something else first in Kondo Village. We end up in the well.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, I was like, the baby's in the well. We went down in the well. We fight. They're not samurai. They're, what is the name of them?
Ochimusha?
I think it's Ochi. Yeah, I think, okay. So we go down in the well and we're fighting some Ochimusha, and we're kind of getting a little bit more familiar with kind of what's going on down there and how the air now wants to kill us instead of just everything around us. But that kind of like starts it off. But then we end up kind of like, she's like, okay, you're kind of cool. Maybe you could do something else for me. That's when we end up going over to Mount Yugi. And that's where we end up meeting up with some like mysterious shadow people. And some of the story starts to come around at that point. And we kind of get into the thick of, she starts kind of showing us what we need to do. And there's now 5 more of these deposits within Narukami Island that we go to, that we end up fighting more Ochimusha. And really in the end, what it comes down to is that we have this giant fight with a root ball.
With a root ball?
Oh, I wish it was Paul.
No. I will say, I was so frustrated in that fight. I was raging. I think that was the first time since the very beginning of the game where I had a full team KO because I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, it was easy to with the air trying to kill you.
Yep.
I didn't like this quest. It starts out as soon as you get there, you're still like getting accustomed to the land and like, the new region. And then you're doing this ridiculously complicated quest.
Yeah.
With this like mysterious masked lady, which I normally would love, but it was a little overwhelming.
Loved masked ladies.
It kind of reminded me of, and I think we mentioned this before, but like when you're a new player who starts playing when Dragonspine's already out, you can go to Dragonspine right away at like level 6, and the first person you see to fight is level 32. So it's what it kind of reminded me of. It felt like we were new to this land and we're like rushed into this hard world quest that you don't have to do, but one of the first times in Inazuma where you're like, oh, I guess I'm not going to complete this world quest right away. I guess I'm going to let this like sit to the wayside.
It's true. It's sort of like the second in the mountains or whatever that quest is called in Dragonspine.
Yeah, because in the mountains was the same way. And I remember Brandon telling me not to do the Dragonspine quest. He was like, you're not strong enough yet. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, why do I have it already? I feel like it was months before I could actually do that. And I feel like I waited at least a month to do the cleansing ritual as well.
I feel like when I did the cleansing ritual, I was like, this is the longest thing ever, which of course I no longer believe now that I've done the Aranara Odyssey.
Oh my God, yes.
It was very long and it was a lot to follow and understand. And I think, like B said, you're still learning of different parts of the land and what's going on and what the story really is. And they make you go around and put all these barriers up on all of these routes. And then you got to go and take them all down and then fight a RuPaul.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
At which point, when we actually do that, instead of where the minor cleansing actually just suppresses it, it actually releases it, kind of cleanses out all the bad stuff, and things can kind of go back into a normal state. There's not this like air of chaos and stuff like that kind of goes on, and that's kind of how we're first even introduced. Just to even jump back to the Kondo Village, there's things that are just upsetting and like not working well. There's something kind of going on, and that's what we investigate, and it's because there's so much of this stuff built up.
It's like a weird ley line problem, basically. Like the ley line is throwing off the energy, which reminds me of the whole Lisa with Dvalin saying that it's like a kitten with a yarn ball, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it reminds me of a little bit.
Yeah, analogy.
I'm going to just take a little bit of a step back for travelers who may not remember the quest at all. You meet Hana Chirisato, like Tiff said, in Kondo Village. She has you do this weird quest where you end up like in a well, and you realize this well is huge because it's not just a well, of course, because nothing's just a well in this game. And later on, you help her and you go to the main mountain of where the shrine is, and there's these like, I don't know what you would call them, like these beautiful arches basically that are mini shrines, and that's where we fight the people and cleanse them, as Tiff and Alan B all explained. And then root the RuPaul ball thing.
The RuPaul ball. That's going to end up on our page, just this way I can then for like the 5th time say RuPaul.
RuPaul drag race.
It's a tongue twister. Doesn't Hana Chirisato call herself the filth of the Sakura?
Yes, she does. She calls herself the leftover filth, that she was made from the filth of the Sakura, and that she's the leftover memories of Kitsune Shigu. And that's kind of like where we first get into some of this really deep into the lore of what's going on. Like, so we've kind of gone through what you, at least in this beginning part, what you're doing with the trees, but the part that kind of leads you into why you're doing it outside of like, you know, making things happy again, comes down to like this part of the story where we start learning a little bit more about Lady Saigu. She's also named Kitsune Saigu. She's known as like the goddess of the Kitsune. So we learn about Kitsune Saigu from that part, and that kind of like leads into when we're even at that first cleansing part, when we're seeing those mysterious figures and kind of following them up around Mount Yugo. They're showing us like little flashbacks, and we start learning a little bit more into this person and where these memories that are kind of like saved over.
Kitsune Saigu, she was a friend of the Shogun, right?
Yes. She was a friend of the Shogun while she's passed way before this game started. And so have a couple of the other people. We actually get introduced to her in the character trailer for Shogun. Chio, there's one other person having a picnic in a little park, and then slowly they all start disappearing.
Sad.
Yeah. It's called The Nightmare. So, I mean, you know, we knew what we were watching there.
Inazuma is filled with ghosts.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely the most haunted of the lands. I mean, even within Kanomiya, I would consider Kanomiya part of Inazuma. So add that in. There's literally...
Yeah.
And before we go a little bit further, even into like some of those connections and stuff, just 2 little fun facts that I just wanted to throw out there. Hani Chirisato was actually originally called Kazari. I think it changed at the 3rd patch of the game. And mainly it was because of a mistranslation that was happening. Kazari meant in Chinese opposed to Japanese. Like it was getting pushed a little bit closer to the Chinese pronunciation, but would mean something very differently. But since this is based in a lot of Japanese folklore, it was kind of losing it. So you may hear her referred to as Kazari at times. They did do an update where even Paimon's voice line that she talks about her is changed over and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Her name means the village of fallen blossoms. And actually comes from the tale of Genji, which is an 11th century Japanese piece of literature that kind of like, while the story is huge, you know, it kind of is like a first look into like the aristocracy that was going on at that time in the 11th century.
Oh, that's
Genji
so cool.
Impact.
Genji Impact.
So I have one quick question before we go forward. What exactly is a kitsune? I know Yaimiko is a kitsune as well, and her whole storyline really focuses on like a kitsune ritual. But what is a kitsune?
A hot fox lady.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it like a fox spirit?
Yeah, so there's like a couple of iterations of like kitsune yokai, and there's like a couple different versions in China, and there's some in Korea. Like it's super similar, but there's always like different connotations between them. But it's usually a anthropomorphic human with fox-like characteristics, or can turn into a fox depending on the legend. They might have 9 tails, they might have 1.
Is this Pokemon?
Yes. Well, there's like 9-tailed kitsunes that you find in Korean folklore, but they tend to eat the hearts of men, kind of like a succubus.
Oh, nice.
But kitsune is just part of the yokai, which if you play the most recent yokai event, you get to be introduced to a lot more iterations of yokai, which, as I know in Japanese culture, they're not demons per se, if you watch Inuyasha in the dubbed version, but it's more folklorist creatures. Some are scary, some are benevolent, some are just neutral.
I was so confused by the children with masks, and I was like, they're pretending to be yokai, but they're not. They're just kids, but I guess they were yokai?
No, I don't think they were actually yokai. I think they might have just been kids, because clearly have masks of like Kappa, and I can't remember. I only cared about the Kappa boy because he was so cute.
So cute. They were definitely yokai because they're the ones who created like the Pong game on the waterfront.
It was very confusing.
A little bit.
For travelers, we're talking about the recent event where Ito was trying to scare kids, and then there's like a scary lady with like flowers on her eyes. But that scary lady with the flower on her eye, she openly admits at the end of the quest that those kids are yokai, and she didn't want them to be hurt by the death of a human. That the whole storyline is basically like about an older yokai who became friends with a samurai, and then one day the samurai died.
It's hot. Confirmed furries.
Yeah. And the yokai with the flower on her face, who we think is evil, is really trying to protect these like baby yokais from also getting hurt. So they're trying to put on a festival that connects the yokai and the humans, and she's trying to squander that. But we've established that kitsunes are yokai, but Goru and like Tinyari and Diona, they're not kitsune or yokai, right? They're just like different types of creatures.
So Goru is a Shibu, like Shibu Inu. So he's more dog. And Diona is part of a feline race, which is what we see in Mondstadt. Even her dad, the alcoholic motherfucker that he is.
Draft,
which a draft of beer it makes a lot of sense now thinking about it. It's just either a different anthropomorphic race of human, not human, but like they're just a little different. They just have different ears because Klee is a long-lived, somewhat of an elf possible character.
Yeah.
Sucrose, we don't know for sure, but her ears remind me a lot of Yai's, and it'd be really cool if she was like a little fox.
Yeah, I think they sort of play with that. Like they play with the folklore of like, you know, maybe someone's a yokai because they're from Inazuma, but the same, you know, animal type person in a different region might be referred to as something else. So
yeah, I hope they jump into that more.
They probably will. We have fennec foxes, we have doggy boys, we have fox ladies, we have cat girls.
I don't know if those go into being kind of the same type of thing. Like those remind me more of the Adepti, and because they can be like almost like that half kind of thing, is more of there are a fox that can shapeshift more into a human. Like not so much that they're the
I guess what denotes them from being just a human like creature that's half cat, half human, half fox, half human is basically they have special abilities outside of visions or anything that's given to them. They themselves have their own abilities.
Interesting.
They're said to have like paranormal abilities. They get stronger and wiser. Like their abilities get stronger and wiser as they age. Yaimiko, like we said, is a kitsune. She's actually the most powerful type, called the Kyubi. And I mean, if there's anybody who's going to be a really strong kitsune, you kind of look at her and be like, yeah, she's a badass.
Yeah.
In her storyline, when we're helping her, we get like our body taken over by a kitsune, right?
We get possessed by a yokai. Yeah, from a painting, which is it's very cool seeing how I think that yokai was trapped in the painting, but we see more and more inanimate object yokai, which is not super common, but it's something like that pops up a lot in Japanese folklore. And look, you can go on a deep dive of the amount of yokai, and some of them are just insane, particular of the like jumping one-eyed umbrella.
Oh yeah.
Which we have as a sword. So
yeah.
That in and of itself is a yokai.
Yeah, and the flower lady was originally a fan.
Or a comb? No, she was the Pongo.
And what about the sword from Kazua's story quest?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can't remember if that was actually possessed or it has like a particular yokai, which reminds me of the third movie of Inuyasha, if anyone knows.
It does. Where
the third sword of Inuyasha's father, I can't remember his name at the moment, is possessed by a yokai, or in the dubbed version of the movie is a demon.
Yeah. It was really cool.
And if you wield it and you're not like accepted, it like grows tentacles and like gets all in your skin, and it's really gross.
That is interesting. It's very comparable to Kazua's sword.
Sounds hot.
We got to get you guys to watch Inuyasha. Al and I are going to force it on y'all.
Oh, yes. We're going to watch the entirety of all of the episodes.
But
then
first,
all the movies.
we have to watch Buffy.
Oh yeah. We're gonna
Oh,
watch
shit.
Buffy.
I'm with B.
The only thing I remember from Buffy is one scene in the later seasons, and it's like a clone of Buffy boinking that
the Buffy
blonde
bot.
dude.
It's a Buffy bot, just like
And
the
then
Raiden
Allison
Shogun.
Hannigan comes
Oh my
in and
God.
is like, "Are they boinking?" And I had no idea what boinking meant.
Wow.
My mother had to explain it because I was sick and we were watching a Buffy marathon. I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm in a fever dream.
I feel like everyone there had like a Buffy marathon when they were sick or a Charmed marathon. So make sure to let
both.
us know which one you preferred.
Team Buffy.
Buffy.
Mhm.
What witchy TV show were you binge watching in the late 90s, early 2000s when you were sick?
or currently.
Or currently?
Did you suffer through the Vampire Diaries and the originals like I did?
Hey, I don't know how much suffer.
It wasn't suffering in the originals, I'll tell you that.
So back to fun magic-y type things.
There's an interesting thing that kind of comes down into the swords. It's through some of those friendships with Lady Saigu and Shio and stuff like that. I'm not going to remember it right now, but I know one of the people actually makes like a piece of paper that lets you infuse elemental energy into swords and stuff. And it comes down to being related to Kazua's sword and the Hakushin ring as well, because I can't remember it right now. I will put it on the site. There's a nice little video that kind of talks about these little like hidden features of Lady Saigu that you might not know. And it goes down there's like this crazy ancestry path. We would be here for 3 days if we went totally into it.
I love that.
But yeah, it's very interesting.
We went through the actual cleansings, both for the Thunder Sakuras and for the Sacred Sakura. We've learned a little bit more about kitsunes, the rituals that were involved in this. I want to jump into the second Raiden Shogun storyline a little bit because I believe that starts to go back to the Sakura Tree and talks a little bit about the ley lines as well and the creation of the Sakura Tree.
Right. So during A's second story quest, we find out that these Rift Hounds are attacking the Sakura's root system.
Fuck the Rift Hounds at all costs.
I know. And, we later find out that the Rift Hounds are sort of like harbingers, like they are bringers of like worse enemies that like sort of come as like the front guard and like use their teeth to like rip space open to allow other things from the abyss to come in, like worse things. So
That's amazing.
Rift Hounds are scary and, bad, terrifying.
I'll never look at the vagina wolf the same way again.
The other night, how no one knows what that is but us.
Dry like a vagina, mama.
Okay, so A and the Traveler, they go to investigate. Like we run into A when we're sent on this quest to deal with the Rift Hounds, and A's like, "Oh yeah, you already sort of like snapped me out of my plane of euthymia, and I'm sort of trying to like learn how to be human again. So let's go deal with this Rift Hound problem." And then we run into a ghost of a samurai, and we realize later that this is a memory of someone who was fighting for, quote unquote, the Shogun during the Cataclysm. And A is very much like, "It's all right, everything's fine now, you can go." And then the ghost sort of disappears. So we find out that the Sacred Sakura Tree, which is, the giant tree of the Narukami Shrine, gathers filth, quote unquote filth, from the ley lines. We already know from the Masked Lady quest that it can purify the filth because she was, an amalgamation of filth from Lady Saigu. So we know that the Sacred Sakura Tree can actually just pull in filth from the ley lines, and then there's different rituals that can cleanse it and purify it, which we already did at this point when we're doing the second story quest for A. So when the Rift Hounds attack the Sakura, they make a crack in the trunk of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the filth leaks out and combines itself into a physical entity. And A tells us that an entity formed with strong filth would be highly aggressive, but since the Sakura was recently cleansed, the filth instead becomes a memory from the ley lines, which sort of goes back to Sumeru and the idea that every memory, like everything that happens in Teyvat is recycled as a memory and it goes through Irminsul, right?
Right. Everything with Rukkhadevata, and that's why, spoiler if you didn't do Sumeru, but that's why Rukkhadevata needs Nahida and everyone else to forget about her.
Right.
It's like Rukkhadevata was the filth of Irminsul.
Or forbidden knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's this filth that the tree's gathering. We purified it in a previous quest. It gets absorbed. The Rift Hounds made a hole, which let a memory seep out. And so this sort of helps explore her humanity a little bit. And she mentions that purified filth quickly dissipates and gets reabsorbed back into the ley lines, which I thought was interesting. So apparently memories from the ley lines can escape temporarily, but then they get sucked back into the root system of Irminsul.
Wow.
Yeah. And so A tells us that she felt she had to fight these monsters that came out of Conria, like after the cataclysm. And she's being very cagey, and we don't know why at this point. And she's fearing that all these monsters were, spilling out into Inazuma, which, by the way, means that there's some kind of exit point within Inazuma, which like connected to Conria, which I'm thinking is Enkanamiya. Because like during the calamity, during the cataclysm, all these monsters were coming into Inazuma.
Right. And so a bunch of monsters came in the leeway through the chasm, right? So
yes,
that would make sense that these more underground portions, and Enkanomiya had been underground for years, probably hundreds, if not 1,000 years prior to all this.
At least 6,000 years prior, right?
Yeah, because the primordial one like had a fight with the second who came, and that's how Enkanomiya got underground.
Yeah, so it's at least older than Zhongli. In retrospect, we can all link it. Is it older or younger than Zhongli?
Nothing is allowed to be older than Zhongli. He is the start of time. We have BZ and AZ.
Yeah, and we know that Enkanomiya has a sort of like a triforce, like a meeting point of the different realms.
Yeah.
The human realm, the light realm, and the abyss realm. So we know that's happening in Enkanomiya. So I don't know. I'm assuming that was coming up from Enkanomiya, but at the same time, like that's way below the sea. Like how did they get into Inazuma? Maybe there's some different place.
I think that makes sense though, because they have to go down into Enkanomiya to cleanse the coral. Don't they have to go down there and cleanse the coral and get like the coral branch or something? And every certain amount of years too.
Yes,
I don't think that's too crazy or far-fetched. And I just want to say quickly that I find it very interesting that so far we can name a place where abyssal monsters can easily come up in both Liyue and Inazuma. It makes me very curious where those locations are going to be in Mondstadt and in Sumeru.
Yeah.
Because it would seem that there is a place underground for monsters to come up in 2 out of the 4 nations so far.
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in the old Mondstadt area where we fight Dvalin weekly, there might be something under that's just been trapped due to the ruins.
Yeah.
It's possible. There could also be, maybe there's something under the lake.
There's Spiral Abyss. Musgrave.
Yeah, there is Spiral Abyss. Yeah.
And the Thousand Winds Temple extension site also has a lot of like staircases that look like they might go under the sea. So, and in Sumeru, maybe it's over by the tornado. I don't know yet.
Which we'll get in the 3.4 update. No, we won't. Wait, will we?
Yeah.
First of all, it's tornado, not tornado.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm from Oklahoma, and it's tornado.
A twista. A twista, if you will.
Yeah.
My worst fucking fear. A twister. Thank you. I hate tornadoes.
All right. So anyway, back to
Tornadoes aside.
Yeah, tornadoes aside. So A is dealing with all these monsters spilling out of the Conria disaster, and her friend Kitsune Saigu is like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I got this. You deal with all of, whatever you're doing. I'm going to make sure that Inazuma is fine. And then she dies.
I'm sorry. It was just the way you said it. And then she dies.
Are we surprised?
It'll be
though?
fine.
I'll fix this for you.
We should start taking shots every time like someone dies.
Someone dies. Oh my god.
All right, so she dies protecting Inazuma for A. And so this is, I think, around the time that A comes clean about her sister, Makoto. And we learn that Makoto was the original Electro Archon and that A was her body double, essentially, and that Makoto was sort of the brains and A was the bronze. So she would put the smackdown on people while Makoto actually like tried to govern Inazuma. And during the cataclysm, Makoto went to Conria without telling A. And A was really confused and sort of hurt by that and didn't understand why. And, once A realized what was happening and that Makoto, went to Conria while Lady Saigu, was like protecting Inazuma, A immediately went to Conria and found Makoto dying. And this is, allegedly her twin sister. She was with Makoto during her dying breath. And A talks about Makoto's ideals about dreams and how she really upheld dreams as something special. And Paimon is kind of like, oh, you mean like ambition? Like dreams are ambitions. And A specifically says, no, it's something different. Dreams are a little bit different than ambitions, which we know ambitions bring about visions. But a dream is, quote, more imaginary, more abstract, end quote, than an ambition. And an ambition is a yearning for something concrete or material and will be replaced by another ambition in due course. And Makoto was more concerned with dreams, which she defined, or at least A defined, as the force that drives humans to constantly generate new ambitions, which is rooted in instinct. And I thought this was really interesting to revisit because we know that dreams are like a whole thing in Sumeru.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, matters to Irminsul. Like there's this whole weird, abstract, convoluted storyline going on with dreams, right? So it was very interesting to see that Makoto was really sort of obsessed with dreams and was like passing that message along to A.
Mm-hmm.
And then A also mentions that in the last analysis, Makoto's philosophy was an elegantly simple one. And this cracked my brain open.
Crack ours, come on.
I have a really insane crack theory that A is a puppet.
Oh, yeah. That
A's the puppet?
A is a puppet who created other puppets. Makoto created A to be her body double. And then A created Scaramouche and then the Raiden Shogun.
Oh my
That'd be
god.
crazy.
So it's just infinite puppets.
makes total sense.
Yeah, a puppet creating puppets.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And if you go back and like really pay attention to the things that she says and like her emotions, it really feels like, it could be this person coming out of the plane of euthymia for however long, like learning to be human again, but it could also be like, oh. And we also know that A was eventually like locked in a battle with the Raiden Shogun puppet for centuries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't it make sense that like it's a puppet versus puppet battle?
Yeah, and it would make sense why like A never aged in that too, because while the Archons might not age crazily, if you're in a battle for centuries, you should come out looking a little different. But if you're a puppet, nothing's going to change about you.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused on a timeline here. How could A be in a battle with the Shogun puppet for centuries if the cataclysm is only 500 years?
Is this like they're in the plane of euthymia and euthymia is traveling at that, time frame, but it's only been 2 days?
No, so it's in the second Raiden Shogun storyline. A makes a decision that she wants to change the programming of the Raiden Shogun. And that's when they end up battling in something similar to the plane of euthymia.
Well, here's what happens. When A is with Makoto during her dying breath, she enters Makoto's mind, which is weird and convenient, sort of like Sumeru. Very Nahida.
Mhm.
And as a testament of her devotion, A saves a piece of Makoto's realm of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
And she brings it back to Inazuma. So that trounce domain where you fight weekly the Raiden Shogun, that is a piece of Makoto's consciousness that A brought back with her from Conria when she was dying. So she brings it back and she sets it up as a little doorway, I guess. She was also shocked when A first returned to Inazuma after Makoto died. She was shocked to see that the Sacred Sakura Tree suddenly was there. And everyone else was like, yeah, that tree's been here forever. What are you talking about? And A was like, what? And so we eventually learn that Makoto embedded a piece of her consciousness, bear with me, into her sword, which is the Muso Ishin sword.
The titty sword!
The titty sword, yeah.
Titty
The sword that Abe pulls out of her titties. So that was actually Makoto's sword originally, even though Makoto rarely used it because she was
Peaceful.
Yeah. And so she embedded a piece of her consciousness into that sword, and then she gives that sword to A, and then present day, like where we're at in the story, A actually unlocks this memory or whatever from the sword. And so we go into, this realm of consciousness that she brought back with her. And then from the sword, Makoto is, I guess, a memory of her is still in there. And so she sort of explains everything to A. And we realize that Makoto in that memory gives A little piece of light that turns into a seed. And A plants the seed, which creates the tree, the Sacred Sakura Tree, back in time. So she's doing it currently, but she's transported back in time, and she plants the seed, which sprouts the Sacred Sakura Tree, which then is like everywhere in time. It's very timey-wimey. It's very Doctor Who. It's very confusing.
Right. And it was almost like time warpy too. Like the first time I did it, I was like, excuse me? I thought that like everything in the world was going to change, but it didn't. And I was like, oh, this already happened? What? What do you mean?
But yeah, so A decides, you know what, I've had it with the Raiden Shogun. And then the Raiden Shogun's like, oh, really? Well, you program me to uphold eternity. So we're going to fight now, which they do. And the traveler goes through this weird wormhole with Yaimiko's help. And
it was such a crazy image. That was beautiful.
And then, we find Makoto's memory, and that's, where we help A fight the Raiden Shogun, but we find out that they've been fighting for centuries. So we're in this like weird realm of consciousness / time. And there's actually an illusion that Istaroth may have helped A.
Oh, not Istaroth again.
Yeah.
Which would make sense being the god of time.
Yeah, and she's all about eternity.
My mind is processing.
Anyway, I still think that A's a robot.
I honestly 100% agree with that. It would make sense. And they never really fully explain why there were twin gods to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. And also, how would A know how to make a puppet? I mean, obviously a god could probably do it, but like the idea of it, why have a puppet if you already don't know what the idea of a puppet?
And she self-describes as Makoto's shadow / body double.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to touch on one other thing that we actually were questioning in a previous episode.
Ooh, okay.
Which is, are visions a thing back in time, back in the day? And we definitely find out from the second Raiden story quest that visions were a thing at least during the Cataclysm.
Oh, really?
I don't know if they were before the Cataclysm, but they were definitely during the Cataclysm.
What does she say?
So when these memories are popping up in human form as weird ghosts around the ley lines of the root system of the Sakura tree, there's one part where these 3 samurai are gathering around to fight for the shogun during the Cataclysm. And Paimon is like, is that a vision? And one of them responds to her and they say that, yeah, the gods are omnipotent and their willingness to grant their powers to us means that they have high expectations of us. And Paimon says, so that's how samurai of that era understood visions.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's also the only time we've ever heard like anyone mention visions, I should say, at that time.
Right. And they could have been granted right then, right there during the cataclysm, or maybe it was before. I don't know.
I will say, I don't want to touch on this too long, of course, but I did make a list of people who I think would have a vision who have never mentioned having a vision before. And like in the olden days, like back by the around the
The olden days.
cataclysm, but it's like the Viridescent Venerer, Rostam,
Yes.
the Bloodstained Knight, the priestess who was on Dragonspine, Venti's friend, Vanessa, the guy who was friends with the Yaksha stuck in the chasm. Like those all
Yeah.
seem like people who would give visions, you know? But also Krapus seems like, I mean, we don't know a lot about Krapus, so maybe I should like keep my mouth shut on that one. But like Krapus even seems like someone who maybe should have had a vision. It's like, how the hell did they make these decisions?
Isn't part of his whole story the fact that he didn't have one and he wanted his son to have one?
Yeah. That's why he got the delusion.
I'm going to say unpopular opinion. That sounds pretty toxic as a father to be like, I'm going to put the dream I couldn't get onto you.
Have you heard of like pageant moms?
Yeah, that's what Krapus is, like a pageant mom.
Yeah,
Oh my
completely.
God. Because, you know, the Knights of Favonius is a pageant.
2 pageant moms, Frederica and Simon.
I was going to say, yeah, according to Frederica, it is a pageant.
Jesus.
I do want to backtrack real quick, which I think you guys might find this interesting. Venti has a voice line about Ball, who is the Raiden Shogun, I should say, is A. And he says, so I hear you've defeated the mighty Raiden Shogun. I recall the days when she was a young Kagemusha seeking to perfect her martial prowess. She no doubt employs a wide range of reasoning to get you to train with her. Oh, but yes, come close and I shall let you know her weakness is desserts. Now, I was like, which like a Kagemusha, which I might be pronouncing wrong. And the first thing that pops up is a movie under the same name, which talks about a petty thief who's recruited to impersonate like a warlord. But then if you actually like look up what the meaning of the word Kagemusha is, it's a Japanese term for a political decoy, literally meaning a shadow warrior.
Decoy.
Yeah, which is interesting, right?
Not only do we have Sus Beto, we have Sus I. A. Sus A. Sussy.
Sussay.
A Sussa. Shashay. Oh, why?
You're a little sussay.
I wonder if we'll get more about Makoto at one point, because her name means truth. And I feel like she would tell us the truth. And I'd like to learn more from her.
Was she finna dead?
Well, I just love the idea that she left A to rule because she knew she was like this robot puppet. And then she went to Conria to fight the big fight, knowing that she might die.
Which is also interesting, like just to take a moment to talk about all the gods being called to Conria. You would think if Makoto knew that she wasn't good at fighting, that she would have sent A.
Yeah, that she was just a puppet.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing is if initially we're told that they are twin gods, it's like, shouldn't have both of them been brought to Conria then? And they weren't.
Exactly, because we know that Makoto was the actual Archon.
Right.
And we know that the 7 Archons were all called to Conria during the Cataclysm, except for Rukkhadevata, who went to Irminsul to protect it.
Well, she was probably called. She just ignored it. She was like, I got better things to do.
No, she was. Yeah, she was like, nope, I'm going to Irminsul to protect the hard drive of the world. Everyone else, like all the other Archons, were called to Conria to do something. But it sort of, what you're saying makes me think that maybe they knew going in that they weren't going to fight necessarily.
Like she knew she was going in to die almost.
Maybe, or maybe they just thought that like they could use their power to seal whatever it was. That's my theory. But I could see her leaving A as, you know, like her sort of bodyguard to fight all of these monsters that are spilling into Inazuma, because she couldn't do that. And she wanted to protect her people. So why not leave the best fighter in charge, even though we later found out that A left that to Lady Saigu and then went to find her, you know, her quote unquote sister.
It's so sad too.
I think it's an interesting theory, B. I'm just not sure if I'm 100% with you.
I'm here for it. She's dead in the eyes.
It's fine. I mean, it's a wild theory.
Yeah.
She's not as dead in the eyes as Child.
The child had his humanity ripped from him. That's different. There's a difference between having the humanity ripped from you and never having the humanity to begin with.
Damn.
Wow.
She does have humanity now.
Yeah.
That's what I love about her. I love the idea that A is a robot who's learning to be human.
What's that one movie with Robin Wilson? Robin Williams? I said Robin Wilson. Oh my God, the disrespect. I'm so sorry. Robin Williams, where he's a robot that turns into a real man.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. Is it the Millennial Man? Millennium
Oh,
Man?
Oh no,
can't
I don't think I
remember.
saw that either. And I love Robin Williams.
I remember seeing it. I don't remember liking it or remembering the name.
Oh, I loved it. And I don't know why.
I mean, that confirms that we all knew this all along, but A is Robin Williams.
No.
Yes. Also, it's Bicentennial Man. If you haven't watched it, watch it, please.
Emphasis on the bi.
It has Sam Neill in it. It also has Oliver Platt. I totally forgot about that.
I would like to throw one more thing out there too that kind of wraps around this theory, and we can talk a little bit more about this in an episode later in the season. But I find it very interesting that if A is a puppet, right? She had a lot of emotion when Makoto died, and she cried. We've seen that in the little cutscene that we got to see. She obviously is very affected by it still. In her second storyline, we learn a lot about that, and that's really why she created the Plane of Euthymia and created the Raiden Shogun, was because she felt like she had to kind of live in the same lifestyle and follow her lead. And I find it interesting that when she made Skara, or Wanderer, or whatever you've named him, that she threw him away because he cried. And maybe it reminded her too much of the weakness in herself as a puppet.
No, I think it stated that it showed the weakness of Makoto
Oh, okay.
because she had so much emotion. She was the emotional one of the twins. That could go into your puppet theory. But because I guess it might have been residual emotion of Makoto as she died that is coming out of, this new puppet. She's like, emotion. You can't rule with emotion. How Machiavellian of you.
Well, maybe she programmed A to not do that, like to not accept that. So
Yeah.
so A like created another puppet and was like, oh no, you're not going to do because Makoto programmed me to not be like her or to not create someone like her.
Also, more so what I was thinking is that, like, A probably sees emotion as a weakness because Makoto died because she made, like, this emotional jump. And then A has emotions a little bit, like, they're there, and led to Saigu dying because she had the emotions to follow Makoto instead of staying and guarding Inazuma like she should have. So I wonder if that's also could draw into you can't have the emotion like I did. Like I have to make almost a better puppet than me.
Well, it's interesting because Makoto, when she embedded her consciousness into the sword that A took up and stored in her titties.
Where else would you store your sister?
Well, yeah, of course. Fan fiction. But she actually like planned it that way so that A would sort of eventually figure out how to access that memory. Sort of like Rukkhadevata and Ahita. I feel like there's a lot of parallels going on with Makoto and A and Rukkhadevata and Ahita.
Absolutely. 100%.
Can I also propose something? It goes back specifically to the Sacred Sakura, but something more intrinsical to the entirety of Teyvat.
Ooh, let's hear it.
So in Yaimiko's story quest, where we are basically helping the spirits of yokai pass on, it's kind of implied when it comes to like the cleansing ritual, it says like sacrifices, exorcisms, blessings, and rites, like rite rituals, like the ritual of passing on cannot happen. So why is that? It's because the entire tree is connected to the ley lines of Teyvat, right? Which means the ley lines are directly connected to every single living being in the world. If their connection between the ley lines is severed, they can't pass on, which might be the actual like definition of the curse of Conria.
Ooh.
It's not a full-fledged like theory, but there is a lot of interesting lore
you're saying that the people of Conria were severed
from the ley lines.
Ooh,
That
I
would
love
make
it.
sense.
I love it.
And that's why. So a lot of this comes from the content creator Ashikai. She's amazing. I watched her when I couldn't do the update stream or live stream watch with you guys. I just watched her live stream for a live stream bingo. And she almost got, wait, did she get a full bingo? I can't remember. There were a lot of cross out things on that card, which was amazing. But she has a theory that the Curse of Conria, I mean, baseline, they're severed from the ley lines. There's probably more like to the curse on that, and how there's also this idea that your blood, aka your ancestry, is what keeps you from fully succumbing at a certain rate. So those who are not of royal blood, they might succumb to the curse fairly quickly, which is why we have all these Hilly Churls. And it's like, well, why do we have Hilly Churls and then we have Dainsleif? Maybe he's a descendant of the royal line. And then we have Kaya, who seems unaffected by the Conrian curse, but is Conrian. And the prince, and his first constellation is called Excellent Blood.
His blood's so good, he's not cursed.
Exactly. Which might be they have a direct connection to the ley lines still because of the royal blood. Anyway, to say this is through the Sacred Sakura, we learn that ley lines aren't just great things that give us goodies. They are intrinsical to the ecosystem and the spiritual world of Teyvat. And without it, everything go boom.
Yeah, and they record everything, which is backed up when we get to Sumeru.
Right.
Which is why, like, a lot of people say, wait, why is our sibling not considered one of the descenders? And in truth, I think it's because either our sibling, like, has become of Teyvat by just being around Teyvat and you know, kind of just being here, or I think they were recorded through the ley lines through the people that they met and the relationships that they had. Therefore, they have become one of Teyvat because they're already in the memories of the people that live here or lived here.
Well, yeah, it would definitely make sense if, like, something with Conria, if the ley lines aren't connected properly, that's like, oh, well, when the cataclysm happened, he just showed up, so we assumed he was from Conria.
Right, but there's something about Irminsul that knows if you're from this world or not, because that's why Traveler remembers Rukkhadevata.
Right, and that's what I was going to say next, is that I feel like Irminsul may have more so been edited to believe that the Traveler was always there. Or I should say, the Traveler's sibling.
I'm going to expand on this a lot in episode 20.
Oh yeah, we have episode 20, y'all. We're almost to our season finale.
No. But with that being said, I think that's all the time we have for today. My mind is definitely still circling how we went from, like, talking about trees to talking about time loops to talking about, like, possibly puppets making puppets to a lot of other ley lines and elemental abilities. And I feel like Lisa talking about the cat with the yarn ball. That's, like, how I have to process it.
Back and forth. Unravel the timey-wimey.
Thank you to everyone for listening today and coming down this crazy journey road with us. Please feel free to give us a follow on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, to let us know what you think about this episode and what you'd like to see in the future. Also to let us know what 90s/early 2000s witch/vampire/supernatural show you like to watch when you're sick. Otherwise, travelers, we will see you next week when we talk about Xingqiu and the Feiyun Commerce Guild. Until then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Buffy nerds.